for Jaco DeVries. I am the executive director here. I see a few new faces, but a lot of familiar. It's really wonderful to have you. I'm here with Nikki Besser from the teeny tiny
town of Mizpah, Minnesota.
Yeah, it's huge. You guys, they have a DMV.
Nobody's actually heard of it. Like, I had to put it on the map for most of you guys, right? Like, nobody really knew where it was.
They have a DMV, a gas station, and a bar.
That's it. And a post office, 1 hour a day.
Wow.
If you hit it right, you can get your stamps.
So, we're really...
And your taps.
All at once. And the beer.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
It's one-stop shop in Mizpah.
Well, we're grateful to have Nikki with us here today. Thank you for joining us. We'll get asking Nikki some questions. She can tell us all about the 5 main details.
Yeah, I'm going to give you guys, I know I haven't really addressed a lot of the how I got into the craft at least, so I'll get into that. So I had an art background prior to ever discovering paper quilling. I actually discovered paper quilling in the year of 2018. So that's how long I've been quilling. And when I did my first project in quilling, it was nothing like you're seeing here. It was something, and people say, well, how did you discover it? Honestly, I've seen it on Pinterest. If you know, you know. But it was just a small little post I seen that just caught my eye, and it was just a simple little flower or something. But I was like, what is this? And upon research, I discovered it was the craft of paper quilling, and you can't find, not that I found yet, but you can't find the supplies in a craft store because it's not well known enough. So I have to actually order all of my supplies online. Generally, I do it through Amazon or Etsy are the best places. And some of you ask, do you cut your own paper? No, I don't cut my own paper. Like, I am not that patient. Like, if I had to cut my own paper, I would not be doing craft still. So they actually do sell the cut paper pre-cut, and they're sold in many, many, many different colors. And so that's how I'm able to achieve the various tones and values, is because, red comes in 10 shades of red and blue comes in 10 shades of blue. And so I have many colors, and I just fade out by using, that spectrum. And so I don't cut my paper, I have to order them online. And so when I first wanted to try, I didn't want to overcommit to, the craft, as in case I didn't like it. So I didn't even buy the very basic quilling tool, is what they call it. It's basically just a small little rod that has a slit in the end of it, and you thread your paper in the end of that slit, and you turn it, and you curl it until you get a coil of paper, basically. And then you glue the loose end, and you can then manipulate it into whatever shape you want, but I squish them, and you can see there in the garment, for example, on Dorothy, that's the technique I used there, the coil being pinched. But then there's also other techniques where I like to fold it back and forth for an accordion style, and you're seeing that more in like the fur of the goat. So there's lots of different ways to achieve different textures and things, but I didn't even want to buy the $2 quilling tool right away, so I split the end of a toothpick. I bought one package of paper that was a rainbow package. It had the whole rainbow of colors, and so I got the one package of paper, I cut my toothpick, and I made a little flower design. And as soon as I finished that first project, I was just like, oh, I'm out of paper, and I gotta see what else I can do. So then I bought more paper and an actual tool, and then I discovered, after doing too many hours the manual way, that they actually sell an electric quilling tool with a couple double AAA batteries will carve off a lot of time in rolling paper, because what takes you 30 seconds will roll it up like that. So once I found that tool, it was just, that saved me so much time. And so there's not a lot of supplies, there's not a lot of materials that you really need for this craft, which I think I appreciate the most about it. It's an affordable hobby for me. The paper is inexpensive. All I need is the paper, glue, and a quilling tool, which if you're desperate, you can cut a toothpick, and that will serve. And then I only build my pieces on this white, they call it the foam core board, and that's very inexpensive too. And so overall, it's like, for me, the amount of time that goes into it. I'm grateful that, it's not, the materials aren't, more expensive. And so that is, that's about what I got for introduction for how I got into it. So then I just want to turn it over to you guys on anything you want to know beyond that. Emily.
How did this evolve in complexity? So you said you started out with a flower. These
Yeah.
are obviously quite beyond flower. Like you're into like realism. You're painting
Yeah.
paper. How did that happen?
So it took me probably, like I said, I started in 2018, and I'd say about 2021 would have been when I started to really play with faces, humans. Like I didn't have the confidence to try to do that in the early years, so I strictly explored like still life things like flowers, birds, animals, and I had a show previous to this I called it Quillin' It, Life in Paper, and that was my first series that was mainly wildlife, and like I had moose and your lady slippers and all the wildlife, especially Minnesota themed things, and that was particularly it. But I just had this extreme desire to try to master the human expression with paper quilling. I feel like if there's one thing that I want to achieve in my work, it is the emotional impact. Like I want you to be able to sit with it and look at it and like, I don't know, just have it strike your heart in some kind of way. And I truly believe that, every piece will speak to everybody a little bit differently. Like if you sit with them long enough, I feel like they'll tell their story. I was just saying that I don't like to interpret the work for people. I like to say it's open for interpretation because I think everybody will get something different out of each piece, and if you sit with it long enough. And so I don't want to take away from someone else's fantastical take by saying this is what it means, because truthfully, there are even some pieces that I still sit with interpreting, because when these concepts come to me, I get this question a lot too, is where do you get your inspiration? Where do you come up with these concepts? And in all honesty, they're just divinely inspired visions. That's the truth. Like I get these they just come to me, and it's so specific how I see it in my head, right down to the position, the animals involved. Sometimes I get hung up on color would be my biggest hiccup, but overall they just come to me so strongly that I see it so specifically on how I want them to be, where it's like, and so that's it. Like it's just a vision that I get, and they're not people I know. They're just friends in my imagination. They're real to me though somehow. They're alive to me somehow, and that's why they all have names, because just as much as clearly as I see that vision, the name too comes to me with how where Dorothy's Dorothy. Like this was her name, and it was immediate. Like there's no debating it. Any name that they have was their name, and they told me their name just that same way. And so I feel like it is a series on overcoming and like the human, resilience, and it is it's, if I have one goal as an artist in this body of work, it is to touch the heart of man, mankind in some kind of way. It's all from a place of love, and that's why what drives me to put the amount of hours into these that it does take, I would say with consistent, steady weekly work, they take about a month or more to complete one piece. And so it's not an overnight, it's a commitment to see them through. And honestly, I should be better about doing this when I have this opportunity to have these talks. Is I like to bring sometimes pieces that are not completed, where they're in their middle stages, because if you've seen the process, or like they're in between, they really go through quite ugly phases where it's messy, and it's like I just have to trust the process that it's going to turn out the way that I see it in my head, because there's plenty of times where I've done something in completion, or like one aspect, maybe one animal or something, and I just didn't like the way it was catching my eye, and I couldn't ignore it. And so there's not any painting over it or erasing it. It's my X-Acto knife is my right hand man in this process, because that's what it requires, is me taking my knife and carving out all the spots that don't work and starting over. And sometimes that is erasing many hours of work. But in the end, as long as I'm happy with the way, I never ever think about the time wasted. You know what I mean? Because it's not, I don't see it as wasted. I think that time is giving myself that grace to mess up is how I'm getting to this point, is how I'm like truly evolving. I think it's important not to not be afraid to be bad at it, to get good at it. You know what I mean? And that's through trial and error many times. That's through making mistakes and in learning to try to master something or bring it to the next level. Is you got to be willing to mess up and make mistakes, and I have made plenty of them to get to this. And there's a few pieces that are archived that may never finish, you know, because I'm like, I just don't know how to fix you right now, and you know, like, you need to just sit on the side for a little bit. And there's times where I'll be halfway through and I just gotta set it to the side for a little bit. So I say a month. It takes a month roughly, but there's been pieces where from the time I started it to the time that I actually called it complete was spread out over 6 months or more. You know what I mean? From the back and forth. But I mean, total, I'd say about that, and that's a guesstimate, you know, that's about that. I haven't actually ever tried to clock it, because the way that I work at it, I don't have a studio or anything. I work on a little desk in the corner of my dining room, and I got 3 little kids at home on top of it. And so it's one of these crafts where I homeschool them and I have them with me. So it's one of these things where they're always with me. You know, they're always, my children know my creative process better than anybody does, because they witnessed it. I work on it in the chaos of everyday life. And that's why I love this, because I was saying just a little bit ago that there's no worrying about every time I need to stop for 20 minutes or 30 minutes, clean your brushes, put your paints away, put anything that my children are gonna spill or whatever. Like, it's literally, I can walk away from it, come back to it, and never have to think about cleaning anything. You know, it's let the glue dry. And so it's forgiving, and it works for me and my lifestyle too. And so there's just a lot of things that I love and appreciate about the paper quilling that suits me in my life, and that being a great factor into it is it's easy to come and go. And that's why I really don't have success in clocking the hours, because it's a matter of I'm cooking supper and I'm like and then it's like you know, and then it's like, oh, I gotta go out and milk the goats quick, and then it's like, come back 10 minutes, and then but eventually they get there, you know, and so it's like, I don't really know, but it's like, I would say about that month. So yeah, that was a rant. Any other questions?
Do you sketch them out first? Underneath
Yes.
all the paper, is there a drawing?
Yes, so I like to credit my previous art background for that. Prior to discovering paper quilling in 2018, ever since my early years in school and middle school and high school, that's what got me to school every day, was art class. Like, I just loved art from a very early age. And, but I only, prior to 18, I did painting and soft pastels, and I like to dabble in airbrushing a little bit. And I was practicing these medias primarily. And so I had a background and an ability to draw and like some sense of art and how things come together already when I discovered this. So yes, it's just a blank white foam board, and I sketch the entire thing out, and that's my background. And then I do a very, very quick color blocking with marker because I don't want to wait for things to dry any more than I have to. And so when you see these, before I ever put even one strip of paper on, you would look at these. I like to make this joke, and this is why I should bring sometimes these stages, because you'd see what I mean. It looks like a very, very mediocre, not even mediocre, less than mediocre, because I don't put any detail in it. It's plain red here where I'm gonna do red, but there's really gonna be 6 different reds in that. It's plain blue here. I'm just trying to fill in the white space so that, my pen fell, so that you can't, because sometimes, like, you can see they don't meet perfectly sometimes. Like in the turtle, I can see these little spaces. And the color blocking blocks that white out, because if I don't color block it, that white comes through so much and it catches your eye, my eye especially, way more than you want to. So for me, it's necessary that I just block the white up with something. And I put so much in, like the process of putting just the drawing down is just for a proportion for me. It's just an outline to work with it. Everything in terms of like tonnage and colors, that's all kind of decided intuitively in the process. I don't really, that's why I don't put a lot of time into the drawing, because it's all getting covered up. You know, it's all getting covered up, so none of that really matters. All I'm trying to have is my proportion and my outline and just some basic, I make myself what I call a little paint by number, if you will. You know, we're gonna have some red over here, and this is what this is gonna be. And then in terms of blending it and making it look real, that all kind of comes to life in the process as I'm doing it. So, yeah.
So all of Dorothy's texture in her sleeve right there is kind of in the moment.
Yes.
Planned out.
All that I drew on Dorothy here for her sleeve was the outline and maybe like 1, 2 folds. Yeah, it looks like a colored page. That's how basic it is. It's just a black outline, and then I color it with marker. You know, when you look at it, you're like, I always say, people seen it in their beginning, you would be like, this girl calls herself an artist. Like you would be like, no, you're not. You know, but I'm like, I could take it further, but I'm like, what for? Like, we're gonna cover it all up with paper anyway. So that's why I'm like, I sketch it out, but I don't get too carried away with the under painting, if you will.
Do your birds, as an example, ever migrate from one piece
Oh,
of
absolutely.
hardwood to
They're
another?
gonna be flying around when they close the doors tonight. They will be too. They'll be all over the place. Bird poop on the floor later. Don't say that you weren't gold. Have you guys ever seen that movie, Night at the Museum?
Yes.
Where it comes alive at night? I generally believe they have that same kind of spirit. In my world, in my head, you know, you sit with them long enough, they'll talk to you. They talk to me, tell me a whole grand story. They'll tell you too. And they will.
Do you want to share any of your stories about some of your characters?
Well, I was just saying that, somebody else was saying this too, that I've gotten enough of this response through my time showing these pieces so far. Like, what's your take on these? What's your story? What's your interpretation? And again, I'm very leery to interpret it directly, because there's some of them I'm still interpreting, truly. Like, I'll get this, I'm like, what does this mean? And they're like, you'll find out. And so what I'm actually in the process of writing now is a short poem / riddle to go with each piece. And that's my way of telling the story without telling the story, without interfering with another's interpretation. Because that's very important to me as an artist, not to say, this is what this means. Because it's going to resonate differently. Somebody will see something different in each one. You know, and I'm afraid that if I say, this is what it means, which I can't even speak that, because there's something I can't say, you know, entirely. Then I'm gonna box some of that greatness in, and I don't want to do that. You know what I mean? I don't want to do that, because who knows? Maybe somebody else's story is gonna be even cooler than mine. You know what I mean? And how dare I take that away from somebody by saying, no, this is it. You know, because I don't believe that strongly, that you know, they're open for interpretation. And I feel pretty strongly about that. I do. That's why it's important each one has a little surrealist, like a surreal element in them. And that's like the most important piece, because that's like where the story begins, you know? And it's kind of, so it's like, that's the balance, is the realism with a touch of surrealism. And that balance for me is key. You know, I want it to be realistic, but in a fantastical way. You know? Any other questions?
I got more.
Yeah?
How many inches or feet of paper do you think is in one of these?
So on average, the papers come about this long per strip. And I would say there's thousands. There's thousands of pieces. Most packages come with about 200 strips of paper in them, and when you buy them pre-cut, and I will 20, 30, 40 packages or more sometimes, like easily. You know, especially that I'm finding that as I evolve in the craft, if you looked at some of my earlier work, you'd know what I mean. But I'm getting denser and tighter with the paper. It's coming tighter and tighter together, and that actually uses more paper. It takes more paper to create that, but I like that effect. Like, it's just the way it's evolving. So the bigger they get, the more paper they consume, you know. But that's okay, because the paper to me is affordable, you know. So I'm like, if I just want to be able to keep evolving and scaling with it, you know. Oh.
With that in mind, like, what's next for the evolution of work?
So, I was just saying this too. I am not done with this body. They told me, you guys, and this is just because I brought just too much, but there's 5 pieces that aren't even hung in the back room. There's 5 of them that you guys aren't even able to see because there's just not enough space to hang them all. And so, I know this is gonna be, I knew I was pushing that line with the number of pieces, but the thing is, and this is where I'm having to ask myself this as an artist, I'm not done with this body. I'm not, because I have at least 8 concepts strong in my mind that I will produce before I call this complete. And by the time I get to the end of that, I can't even say that it's the end. And so for me, I think I'm going to need to break it into, this body is called Portrayals in Paper, Tales of Overcoming. And I think that it's, as long as I continue to go this direction, I'm gonna have to break it into a second series, part 2. And that is my near future plan. Where it's gonna go from there, I don't know. Every day it's evolving. You know, I just know I have to, as strongly as I felt compelled to make these people, these characters, I have to still do the 8 that I have lined up before I can say I'm done with this body. You know, and I won't even think about a different direction until I've done that much more.
Were all those characters like on the paper before you started, or have they kept like kind of coming up?
They're all right here right now, and this is how they all were too. So they're not real people, like I said, that I know. There's friends of my own imagination, but I have a couple rough sketches in my sketchbook tentatively right now, but I have the idea just cemented in my head. You know, I've got there's 3 more male characters and 4 more female characters, and for sure. And so it's just, that's the way it is. Like, when I see it, you know, it's the way it is. You know, I got one where I don't want to spoil it, because I'm like, oh, take me all down the bunny hole of taking you guys with all the ideas that I have there, you know, but it's also just to try to imagine what I'm going to try to explain anyway. So it's like, just keep your eyes peeled maybe in the near future for part 2, you guys, and then you'll see what I was talking about here with all your new characters, you know? There's more. And I think that the more I do too, I still naturally want to push the boundary and like fill the space more, tell the story more, throw more elements in there, you know, and this is all me building confidence with each piece too, you know. I feel like I had to go through the motions of learning the craft from a beginner level, even though I wouldn't consider myself a beginner artist when I discovered paper quilling. I had to start at a beginner level when I did, and I did start at a beginner level. Like if you looked at it, I started as a beginner, and it just evolved to this because I couldn't stop, you know, I couldn't stop. I was like, can I do this? Because I was like, oh, I did a wolf face, just a wolf face. That's the other one that's not up. Anthony's not up, my shepherd with the wolf. He's not up, but I did a wolf, just a wolf face. And then it was like, can I do the whole body now? You know what I mean? And this is, okay, now I can do the whole body. Well, now I want to add something with him, you know? And then once I felt like I had the basics down, it was just like, I don't know, this gate opened up in my brain, and it was just like the concepts were like boom, boom, you know, like just put it in my lap, and it was just like that, you know, and now I can't unsee any of it. It's true.
This is a silly question.
Never.
Have you ever had a paper cut?
You know what? You would think I'd be bandaging those up like on the daily, but I think I've only like cut my finger like 2 times, and I put a lot of hours in. And I was like, I remember like just recently, I think I got my first paper cut. I was like, how long have I been doing this? And you're gonna start like, but no, not too often, believe it or not. Like I think it's just, yeah, lucky for me. And honestly, my X-Acto knife, I'm surprised hasn't, you know, got me once in a while too. That's more dangerous than the paper is sometimes, but I haven't even seriously hurt myself with that yet. So, and I'm impressed by that. It is. I'm like, you're gonna lose a limb doing this. And again, it shouldn't even be a hazard to be doing this. There's nothing hazardous about it, but you're making it. So.
Do your kids get in on the fun with you?
I have one daughter, she's my middle. I have 3 kids, and she has the most interest in it, and honestly, as long as she can follow through and exercise the patience with it, she impresses me even with what she can do. And it just goes to show that with the right foundations, with the right beginner information, I think anybody could get something really cool. They could, you know, I don't know, maybe you could get to this, you know, if you put enough time in. I do believe that, you know, it's just a matter of how committed you are to something and how far you want to see it. For me, I just feel like called to make the art, you know what I mean? It's just, I just have to. I feel like I have to, you know? So I hope my daughter will continue, but I'm like, I don't push nothing, you know, when she wants to, I put the materials in front of her and say, make to your heart's desire. And she's done pretty well for 7. She's 7, so that's pretty good. I feel like for the hand-eye coordination and the patience that it takes to actually get it completed, and she did a whole little bouquet of flowers. And I was like, even I was impressed. For a 7-year-old, you know, the patience.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
I have a boundary for you.
A boundary.
You probably exit plan too. Full wall mural.
Full wall mural of like my paper quilling.
Again, you'll just jump into.
Is that a challenge?
Boundary and exit plan.
You know, if I feel like in time, it's, you know, I'm gonna eventually, like, I'll have done what I've done, and I'll want to take it another level, right? To keep evolving, to keep being interested, but do you know how long
It doesn't matter.
that panel would take? But for me, it has to be, I'm not saying no, okay? I'm just saying that it would have to be a very compelling concept for me to do it. I'm not saying no. I'm just saying I haven't dreamt it up for that scale yet. You know, because when I do go to do that, that would be a serious undertaking. Maybe the whole winter.
Do you ever see yourself incorporating other types of materials into your concepts?
like a mixed media type of a thing. I feel like I towed that line with the fake moss in a couple of these pieces. Like you'll see that's like, but that's the closest that I've come to like mixed media. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying I'm not. It would have to be still paper or something that's, you know, but the moss so far is the closest that I've gone with a mixed media. Because not everything just works with paper the same, you know? I tried to paint, you'll see I leave these backgrounds white now. They're all white backgrounds because in some of my earlier work, I painted them or I added color, like something flat, that wasn't paper. And I felt like that actually took away from the piece. You know, it got lost in the flatness or the dullness of the background, the paint, you know? And so that's why I leave it white, because I feel like the color of the paper will pop more that way, you know? So I'm very like, leave it white so you can appreciate the color more, you know?
You do great work.
I appreciate you. I appreciate you all for just coming and checking it out and like just showing up, show your support for it and your genuine interest. And so, you know, for me and Miss Paul, it's like, you know, this is cool for me. This is exciting for me. Anytime that I get to share it, you know, I put a lot of hours into it, and to have it be well received is the greatest gift I could ask for, you know. And it's like, I want to. My favorite question. I've gathered a few answers already, but I love to know what people's favorite piece is, and I honestly want to start bringing like a little box to future exhibits so that, you know, people will gift me with that. Like, just tell me which one spoke to you the most. Because when I sit with these pieces, I spend many, many hours in them, and I wonder. My mind just ventures into all these crazy places with them, you know, into the stories, into their backgrounds. And it's like, how will this touch somebody else's heart? Will it resonate the same way? Like, you know, so for me, it's generally my, I think, greatest desire. I want to know which one you guys love the most, you know, and I know it's hard to choose, but I think it's always interesting who speaks to who. And they asked me earlier, the gals, which one so far is like the favorite collectively. And he's not up right now, but yeah.
You can bring up. We can help you see that.
Yeah, they did great. I overshot, but it's hard for me to pick and choose which ones to bring when space is limited. It truly is, because I love them all. And I just think like they're deserving of a spot in their own regard, you know, but I understand, you know, spaces, especially at the scale that they are, you know, but he's not hanging up, but it's, I love them all for different reasons, and they all represent a completely different, you know, thing.
I don't see any price tags on them, so are you keeping them for yourself, or are they?
I'm not in that. I haven't really put too much. I feel like I'm still building the body that I don't want to separate them yet.
Okay, that's what
I'm not ready to break them up yet.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? When I feel like the story has been shared, then
okay. All right,
I'm not opposed to it. I have prints of them, but that's where I'm at with it. I'm still just wanting to share the story, you know, and so yeah, one day. Yeah.
Wondering where you're at.
Yeah. Where I'm at. I feel like I definitely do it from a place of love before anything else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like I try not to think about anything else. It's like do it because you feel like your heart wants to do it, you know? And that's what drives me. Someday.
Thank you all for joining us. Thank you for the
Thank you guys.